if you're unfamiliar with the story, what ended up happening is that PayPal decided to create this policy where it's their acceptable use policy. They decided to update it. And it warned PayPal users that you have to adhere to the terms of their policy, or it may constitute a violation of the PayPal user agreement and subject you to damages, including liquidated damages of $2,500 per violation. And they said that it may be debited directly from your PayPal account as outlined in the user agreement. Now, if you went to the restricted activities and holds section, you would find a whole big list of no-nos, including obviously fraud and selling counterfeit goods and things, of that nature. However, what was included on this list of no-nos is you were disallowed from providing, quote, false, inaccurate, or misleading information. Now, you might think, okay, well, I understand, not providing misleading information. What's so wrong about that? The thing that's wrong about it is that in every other facet of society, misinformation has been construed to mean disagreement. Disagreement with anything. So who is ultimately the arbiter of what is or is not misinformation? Do their political beliefs inform their definition of misinformation? And that's what we have no guarantees on. So just going by everything that we've seen on every other social media and with all of the ESG stuff taking place, dare I go on? There's like so many things here. With all this stuff that's out there, think about this. So ultimately, misinformation could mean they don't like your politics, and then here you go. $2,500 out of your account. So what is misinformation? They have the prohibited activities. They have that listed. So if you went on their acceptable use policy page, you'd see prohibited activities, and they find forbidden, quote, the promotion of hate, violence, racial, or other forms of intolerance that is discriminatory, or the financial exploitation of a crime. Now, you might think, again, well, what's wrong with that? Are you actually wanting to go out and engage in any kind of hate or violence or any kind of racial or other forms of intolerance that is discriminatory or the financial exploitation of a crime? Because if you're not doing those things, then what do you have to worry? Again, I go back to how they're widely defined in society. Any kind of disagreement is now considered hate. Simply saying that you support your Second Amendment right of self-defense, for instance, is classified as hate. People think it is hateful. They do. They think it's hateful to even talk about it. It's hateful. I've had entities that I did not want to work with anymore in terms of advertising that wanted, maybe don't talk if you talk about firearms, don't get into too specific of a nature with it. Some people think it's violent. Just talking about the features of a perfectly illegal to own inanimate object is violent? No. Words aren't violence. Violence is violence. Antifa burning down blocks is violence. BLM helping them burn down blocks, engaging in actual assault. That's violence. Actions are violent. Words are not. And so that's kind of, I think, the objection that I and many others have. Because so many things now, simple disagreement is promoted as hate, is promoted as violence. Simply saying that women exist is considered discriminatory. You're called the sexist slur TERF for saying that simply women exist. So that's the issue here. Talking about having strong border security is considered hateful and violent. Saying that you have a right to defend your life or defend yourself against an attacker is considered hateful or violent. Everything is hateful or violent if it doesn't completely correspond 100% with what the left believes. And the issue that I have with that is if this is used as a measure to determine even this financial arrangement here, well, that's a major issue, because then someone could just, at their discretion, however they decide to define what is hate or what is violence. And as I just explained to you, some people on the left think that simple speech by itself is violence. Well, then my goodness, you could lose $2,500 simply because you say that women exist. That's a huge problem. You're not allowed to betray the dogma that is the progressive left. You are not allowed to, there's no nuance that is allowed on the left. None. So they had this, and it was apparently something that they could enforce at their discretion, PayPal. So you would be fined for spreading misinformation if you suggested that women exist. But it actually, and it threatens to fine you for hate and intolerance. And if you don't like drag queens, the PJ Media said, well, what if you don't like drag queens that are in schools, primary schools? Well, that's intolerance. It could cost you $2,500. And that's just for one offense alone. Does anyone actually want to work with PayPal and then find that they are going to be charged like $10,000 just because you happen to be a conservative? Heavens. But PayPal, after all of this came out and people started objecting to it, then PayPal tried to walk it back. No. They tried to. And by the way, this wasn't people misreading or reading too much into this. That one of the Eugene Volokh, who's over at Reason, was saying, yeah, this is what this means. Even if it's not considered misinformation, this absolutely is not being exaggerated. And I have to say that typically I find some of the folks at Reason to be almost killjoys. So not really prone to any kind of enthusiasm or any happiness at all whatsoever. Kind of just killjoys. So when they say this, I think you should, take it a little bit seriously. There's no way to misread what their acceptable use policy was. So they were PayPal was desperately trying to walk away from it and act as though this was, it was something that was just being exaggerated, but unfortunately it's not. So a lot of people were closing their PayPal accounts. Thankfully, I don't have one. If I did, I would have already closed it because this is just silly. It's silly. I don't want to work with anybody like that. I don't think you would either. To have something, well, we're just going to take your money if we don't like your views. So they absolutely took a beating. And they said that they ended up saying, they told the press, they released a statement saying, no, it was incorrect information. It was incorrect information. What? It wasn't incorrect. People were reading it verbatim. The attorneys that were writing about it were reading it verbatim. But the members of the press that love to just not see, they can't imagine, they can't see stories in front of them. They were saying that, this is how conservatives interpret it. Well, there were non-conservatives who were absolutely accurately interpreting this information. So Steve was saying Venmo is bigger than PayPal, and that's their parent company. I haven't seen where Venmo did this, but PayPal definitely did.
Yeah, Venmo made $850 million in revenue last year, and they make more than PayPal, but they're like a subsidiary. They're an LLC since 2012. So it's interesting to see if PayPal will have an effect on this or what. Yeah, because everyone uses Venmo now, so who knows?
Yeah, I'll use Venmo, but I don't use PayPal. I don't think I've ever used PayPal, but I would hope that Venmo wouldn't. Usually, and what's weird is that particularly Venmo, it's just you're completing a transaction. I don't know how it's just facilitating a transaction. So I don't even know how you would even engage with Venmo, which, by the way, just to clarify for people tuning in, I don't think that they've adopted that weirdo PayPal policy, but because it just facilitates transactions. It's not like there's any room for sort of expression or a marketplace or something like that. So even if they did, you'd have to think, well, what are they using? What criteria are they using to evaluate their decision, since the platform doesn't really allow for anything like that? And then that would make me totally suspicious. But, are they spying on what you do on social media? I don't know. But PayPal said that they were trying to backtrack, but alas, that's not the case. Not the case at all.